Hey guys, we are here live, which would 10 times better than us being dead. Yeah, that's that wouldn't be very much fun. So we're doing this today. It's an early show. We don't know how this is going to go because normally we do this thing at 8 o'clock our time. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. But the main reason that we did it this way was because we have a lot of listeners over seas, over in England and Ireland, and not really Australia because they're on a different time zone. But when we do these shows at 8 o'clock, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning over there in Germany and Europe, the rest of Europe. So we thought we would do one at 2 o'clock and hopefully give you guys a chance to catch it live.
Hey, Sarah.
Well, hey, Sarah's already chimed in, and it started saying it didn't even say we had anybody viewing it. So good.
Good. I hope we have a lot more viewers.
Yeah. So like I said, it's probably going to be a little slow being 2 o'clock on a Saturday on getting the viewers in here, but most of the people will probably watch this after the fact anyway, so we'll be okay with that. So what we're going to do now is, and I want to say before we bring our guest on, Lee Solway from Realm of the Supernatural, I guess I'll go ahead and put his logo up. So you guys, this is a good time, even before the guest gets on, to pull out your phone and go ahead and subscribe if you're unfamiliar with the podcast. He is a British podcaster. You guys are going to love this. He started off a long time ago. Matter of fact, about the same time we started off, and the show was originally called "Don't Break the Oath," and then it's switched to Realm of the Supernatural. Great podcast. You guys are going to love it. But before we get in, bring Lee on, I want to tell everybody that this is probably going to be our last live Facebook Live, I should say, for a while. We're getting ready to get kicked off into our live events, and as most of you know who listen, we've kind of rededicated ourselves to putting in a lot of time to this Sunday episode. And that's kind of what we're doing. And so this will be one of the things that we knew once the summer kicked in, we were going to kind of kick back a little bit on this anyway, but we hope you guys have enjoyed what have we done? About 10 episodes? Mm-hmm. Seems like it's been at least 8 or so, but we've been able to get a lot of our good friends on here. So without further ado, let's bring on Lee Solway from Realm of the Supernatural. What's going on, Lee?
Not a lot.
Hey, Lee.
Yeah, Lee is normal. Hello.
So, Lee, tell everybody where you're from over in the UK, and then tell us a little bit about your show.
Yeah, well, we're based in a small seaside town called Grimsby. I had a bit of notoriety back in the day. It was a big fishing port, and a lot of fresh fish was sold from Grimsby. Not so much now, but I had a bit of notoriety back in the day. But that is on the east coast of England, sort of halfway really between London and Edinburgh, if you like. So it's slap back in the middle there. And we're kind of a dead end. Not a lot goes on down here. Not a lot of people come down here. But the podcast, like you've already mentioned, it is like it was. It did start out as a paranormal podcast. And Don't Break the Oath days, but the name had to be changed because people keep confusing us with a tribute act for the Merciful Fate or some band, I don't remember, but they had an album by the same name, so people kept coming to it thinking we was going to be doing heavy metal bands or so. That was really the reason why the name got changed. But yeah, we're a supernatural podcast. We cover all sorts of things, not always paranormal, as you know. Some things is the lighter side of life as well. Obviously we've done shows on I mean, you've been on for the Spring Hill Jack episode, which was a corker, and then we had we've done things like hold the funeral. That was about people who let's just say kept dead bodies around longer than they should have done. For various reasons, which won't go into it. But yeah, we've run the gambit, and then obviously we do just shows on paranormal news and listener stories, all sorts of things. So, but loosely, it's paranormal.
So let me ask you this: what is your number one topic when dealing with either the supernatural or the paranormal? What is your favorite things to talk about?
Well, you already know what it is.
I know, but I want to hear you say it out of your mouth.
Ooh, yeah. Say it out your mouth.
Yeah, it's cryptozoology would be up there for sure. Obviously, I've had encounters with UFOs. Well, not UFOs, a UFO, I should say, and fairies as well. And fairies always, that won't go away. That's a little nagging thing in the back of my mind. What is this all about? Why do people still see fairies today? Why do they see them in the past? Why do the fairies not want to be seen by us? So that is always up there. But you don't get so many sightings of fairies these days. So yeah, cryptozoology, the Dogman, the Bigfoot, and other weird things that go on. Yeah, that would be probably top at the minute.
So you've mentioned 2 experiences you had. Tell us your UFO experience.
The UFO experience was, and this is really what started all this, because I'd had a couple of ghost encounters, but ghost encounters is one of those things where a lot of people have them, and a lot of people just pass them off as did that really happen? That kind of thing, and you just get on with life and you forget about it. We don't forget about it, but you put it to the back of your mind, it's gone.
That's the same thing I used to do with one night stands.
Yeah, well, same thing. Yeah.
He's such a hoe.
But,
He's a hoe.
It does happen. But yeah, that would that would happen throughout my childhood. I'd have a couple of ghost encounters in various different locations, different houses, different people with me, etc. But the UFO really kicked this all off, and really simply it's because of the memory block aspect to it, which you'll read about all the time when you're reading to UFO accounts. But essentially what happened in short is we was about 8, 9, 10 around there, and there was 3 of us. There was me, a friend, and my brother, and we all decided to go down to a local little recreation area, if you like, where we used to play. There's like a park that's attached to it, and as kids we used to play there. We used to play a little game called what we used to call tracky. You guys would probably call it tag or something like that. I don't know. So similar to that, but there was like whereas instead of one person being the tag person, it'd be you'd have 2 teams. So you'd have a team of catchers and a team of like escapees, if you like. So our plan was to go down and dig this tunnel under this fence, so we'd have an escape route that the other team wouldn't know about. And that was the plan. So we gets down there, we starts digging. Obviously, being kids, we didn't take any tools. We gets down there and we're looking around for a branch or something to scrape this dirt away with. And in the end, we used our hands. And my brother was like, "Well, I'm not doing that." Straight away, he's like, point blank, "I ain't doing that." And when you start digging dirt, it ain't as easy as what you think it's going to be. So we starts digging, me and my mate, and my brother was laid back on this tree limb that was just sticking out there in the park, and he's watching the sky. And he just happened to mention, he says, this star's really, really big. And we had a look and we looked up, and the moon was there and there was a star, and it was, a lot bigger than what you'd see in a typical night sky. If you in our currency, if you think about a 2p coin at arm's length, that's about the diameter of the moon in the sky. This star was about a penny diameter in the sky, so you can imagine it's fairly big. Anyway, we carried on digging for about another 10-15 minutes or so, and then he says that star's moving. So we stopped what we was doing and we started looking at this star. And as we're looking at it, you had to keep your eye on it. It was moving, but so slowly that if you didn't keep your eye on it, you wouldn't have known. So he's watching it, and it was. And I was just about to turn away and say, "No, it's not moving." And then I realised it was. But just as soon as I realised it was like that, and it was a craft above us. And it was, in essence, it was a figure of 8 shape, 2 sort of overlapping circles, if you like. And from underneath, it looked like, the old film reels that you used to get in cinemas and that. And they used to have like little circles cut into them to make them lightweight, obviously. But it basically looked like that from underneath, 2 of those stuck together. There was no lights on it. It had a glow to it, like a shimmer to it. But like if you drop oil onto water and you get that rainbow effect, that's kind of what this was doing. Anyway, it was there. It was totally silent, and it was, it's got to be. Now, I've been under a plane that we have in the UK that's called the Vulcan bomber, and I've been under a Chinook, a helicopter, it's a military helicopter with the 2 rotors. You have them in the States as well, and I've been under that, and they're about from memory, I think they're about 100 meters long, something like that. So this had to be at least as long as that, if not longer, and probably half as wide. And it was only about 200 foot above us. And like I say, it was there stationary. And we looked at it, and there was a guy walking across the park. And somebody, I can't remember who, but I know exactly what was said. Somebody shouted to this guy and said, "Hey, mister, what's that?" And obviously this guy looks up. And as soon as he sees that, he's gone. He's just like gone. You know, we're like looking at that, looking at this, and thinking, well, if he's running, we should be probably running. So we all run. But there's no fear or anything like that, jeopardy or anything like that. It was just literally because he was running, we would run. And then this is where it gets strange, right? That's strange. But this is where it gets stranger. Because we came home. Obviously, I went home with my brother. Didn't speak about it. And my mate went home. And, we see him after that. Never spoke about it. Me and my brother never spoke about it. And then maybe 10 years later, I was watching a program on telly. And this old lady, on the documentary, it was a UFO documentary. And this old lady pulled up to this traffic lights in Wales, I think it was. And she'd seen this star in the sky. Then this star, as she was stationed at the traffic lights, this star had turned to a craft in front of her. And as she said that, the memories came flooding back into my head of that night. Like literally 10 years had been completely erased from my mind. And again, I don't know if that was deliberate from the craft or if it's just brain does because people saw, being in car crashes and remembering it. So I rung my brother up and said, "Get round here, got to show you this." So I literally sat him down in the chair, put this documentary on for him, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to watch this crap," you know what I mean? And I'm like, "No, just sit down and watch this." So he watched it, and when he got to that point, he was like, he just sat back in the chair and he went, "That's what we saw." And it had come back into his head 10 years later. And obviously my mate had already left the area by then. I've not had contact with him since, so I don't know if he remembers it or not. But we spoke it briefly. I didn't really want to get into too much detail. He's happy not to bring it up anymore. But yeah, that suppression of memory. Now, whether that was triggered by the craft or whether that was by my mind, I don't know. But I think it was the craft that did it. Because the memory was there, but I just couldn't access it until I saw that on the screen. And the other thing that makes me think that was, let's say, alien craft is because I think it read our minds. We was looking at it. It didn't have to show itself there. The odds on it actually appearing where it appeared, for what reason, I don't know. But the fact that we was just about to, turn away from it, and then it showed itself to us, makes me think that it could read our minds or read our thoughts. Now, whether there's beings on craft, who knows? Be some sort of drone from another world. No, but if you had to sit me down and say, do you believe it was military or off-world? I would say for sure that was off-world, because I just don't think our technology, although I know got black projects and all the rest of it, and probably caught up with this by now, but at the time our technology was nowhere near what this did. And I didn't go into how it went, but it literally just flew off silently, smoothly as you like, and it just flew off into the distance and it was gone. No noise whatsoever. Yeah.
That's so exciting
that was UFO, basically.
Yeah, but that's so exciting that you witnessed that. That's amazing.
Let's catch up on some comments. So we got Tracy Bradley says, "Hello, Jerry and Tracy from Ireland."
Hey,
and then
Tracy.
She also said, "I love your auntie's hair. It's pink like yours."
Thank you.
Tracy's aunt, who is in her 80s, who people haven't seen it yet. She's got, white hair, and she put pink in her hair because she said Tracy did it and she wanted to do it. So
she's
really
crazy.
Cool.
She's so fun.
Let's see. Phil Holmes. He said, "There's something wrong with the sound." No, hold on. That's your guest's voice. And we've had a couple of people say his voice sounds fine and all that. Danny Walcott actually said it was a sexy accent. So there you go.
I agree.
But for those of you who don't know, Phil and Lee are actually good friends. So it's Phil poking fun. And there's more. He said, "Why is the camera on the floor? Couldn't you get your tripod up?" To which Wayne Butler said, "It happens as you get older." And then maybe my favorite comment so far, Phil Holmes says, "I'm calling an ambulance. I don't think Lee has breathed yet. During this story, I've painted my bedroom." So anyways. Now Danny says, Classic
Sure.
film. So Danny says, sometimes I wish I could see an alien spacecraft.
Me
Then I
too.
realize my life has been traumatic enough. Yep.
It might be refreshing, Danny. It might be refreshing change. Hey, Deanna. How are you, sweetheart?
Deanna says, hi, guys, from Maryland. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, you guys. We're happy to see you all on here.
All right. Rebecca Yang, International Paranormal Podcast Live Show. Lee,
No,
are
she
you
said
frozen
live
up?
show. Got like a question.
Yes,
Nope.
it's a question.
Yeah.
Get a bit,
Yeah,
a
you're.
bit of feedback.
There you go. Okay. So I guess now it would be logical to go ahead and ask about your fairy story.
The fairy story, well, that's twice as long as the UFO stories. You sure I'm wanting to go into that one? But,
Well, like
fairy
Bill can
story
get 2
was-
bedrooms done.
yeah. Now the fairy story was well, as a young kid again, and it was summer holidays, and all I wanted to do downstairs, eat my cereal, and get out the door, get with my mates, and muck about and that. So I come downstairs. That was my intentions. Run into the kitchen, and as I've come into the kitchen, the door under the stairs, and it's a full size door. You know, it's what we call a cubbyhole in the UK, and it's the void under the stairs, essentially. The door was rattling, which, you know, it's an internal door. There's no windows or anything like that. This door should not be rattling unless there's an animal in there. And at the time, I think we had 2 cats, so possibly it was a cat. So I opened the door, fully expecting for this cat to come out. And to my amazement, there was a boy, which, looking back on it, after the was impossible, because the cupboard itself was full of debris. You know, from bags, shoes, the Hoover was in there. There was all kinds of things in there, fishing gear even. There was all kinds of things in there. There's no way I could physically stand in. When I opened the door, a little boy standing there, my age, like 8 again, something like that. And he starts talking to me, introducing himself. He asked me my name and all the rest of it. And for whatever reason, this wasn't alarming, right? This was like talking to an old friend. So I had a chat with him, and then I'll go. I meet my friends down the corner, you know, cheerio. Went on with my day. And this probably happened maybe the next 2 or 3 days, okay? Same again, just a normal conversation with the guy. And he's just telling me all sorts. Anyway, maybe 3 or 4 days later, comes the same thing, over the door, there it is. And the way he was dressed as in what you know, perceived a wizard to wear, like a robe with a hood. And this robe was like a purple silk, and it had like stars and moons dotted around it. And again, I don't think this is what he wears every day. I think this is what he was showing to me to make me intrigued. Okay, but he before I've been chatting to him, having all these conversations, and then this 4th day he presents me with what I can only describe, you know, nowadays as you describe as a test tube, okay, with some clear liquid inside, and he offers me it, and he says, "Yeah, that's for you. You know, drink it." And I said, for whatever reason, I just said no, and he said, "No, I want you to drink it." And I said, "No, you're all right. You know, I'm gonna have this cereal. I'm off." And he went, "No, drink it." Anyway, he starts getting more and more irate, and I kept saying no. I didn't want to drink it. So after maybe 5 or 6 times him telling me and getting more and more irate, he started to. The only way you can describe it is really he started to morph. Okay, from this child to his actual self, what I believe was essentially a goblin. Okay, so I'm face to face with this goblin, and you know, he's a typical goblin. He's got the grey brown skin, who's on, as far as I could tell. He had, you know, the humanish ears. He didn't have pointy ears like you see on pixies and stuff. He had human ears, you know, humanish nose, bald, and he's just anyway. But he's getting more and more agitated with me not taking drink, and you know, he opened, he had rows of teeth, real sharp, like needle teeth, and I just panicked and slammed the door shut. And I was holding the door and screaming the house down because my parents and all the rest of it. And I'm holding the door and it's shaking violently and I'm screaming. And I could hear all this commotion going on inside the door. And I think, at the time, I'm thinking he's come through and he's going to kill me. I know it's going to happen. And I'm screaming. And then all of a sudden, after maybe, it felt like hours, but it was probably only 30 seconds, if that, the door just stopped. I just carried on my day, like nothing had happened. And that's the really weird thing about it. Looking back on it is the fact that I bumped into this thing, didn't alarm me that there was a child in the cupboard. That's not, that was unusual, believe me. And the fact that we had this conversation, that didn't ring any alarm bells. And even afterwards, I don't remember going out that day and telling all my mates what had just happened. It was like it was gone. But then years later, you start looking into these stories, and obviously we did a show on the puka, which is another theory from Irish folklore the other day. And you start looking into these fairy stories, and you start to see these little tricks that they do to people, where they offer you food and they offer you drink. And the folklore says that if you take from a fairy, you become a fairy. Okay, so if I had a drink, would I have just vanished into fairyland? You'll never know. But yeah, that's why that one keeps coming back all the time, because there's no answer to that. It's just one of those things where it's just question after question after question, but no answers. Maybe someone's got an answer, but I ain't.
Well, I don't understand how you're so calm. I would have been freaking out. How do you remain so calm during that?
Yeah, I think he was, they do to people. They have a way of controlling people's emotions for sure. Because when you open that door and there's a child there, you should be alarmed. You see the shadow man and you feel like it's an old friend. Not in that romantic sense. Like
so what kind of friends do you have?
This is a great come around. Especially not that sort of romantic sense, but come here and put your arm around you. You've been old pal. Not that sort of thing, but it's familiar. That familiarity.
Familiar. Mm-hmm.
Like if you saw, if you walked down, you saw a guy that lived down your street, and you see, you said hello to him in the morning, whatever. That sort of familiarity. That's what you get sometimes with a shadow, and that's always intriguing as well, because you should be fearful, something like that. You'd think.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple quick questions, and your internet is breaking up really badly, so we may end up having to cut this short in a little bit, but no biggie. I know you can't control that. Author Leslie Fear asked a while ago, what is your thoughts on crop circles?
What's on what?
Your thoughts on crop circles?
Natural, a lot of them. The early ones especially. I think there was an experiment that these farmers came up with, where the people got to realise when crops get damaged, that's money down the drain for farmers. It's not just people trampling crops in. It's all joviality, and all the farmers come out and have a good time and that. Some of them have tickets to go and see them. Right? In the old days, they were upset about it, and they actually did this experiment where they set up cameras all around the field. And they sat on each corner of the field with shotguns, ready for whoever was going to come and do this. And they all spent the night there. Next morning, they wake up. They get up next morning, and the crop circle's there. But no one heard a thing during the night. And one of them looked back on the camera, and this camera was running infrared. It was a night, and it actually caught this like jellyfish, almost like a flash of light. Maybe like a lightning, but it started and then it like came down as tentacles, exactly where the crop circle was seen the next day. So to me, that maybe that's some sort of natural, plasma energy or some energy that's making this actual shape on the ground. Not the more complex ones. I think the more complex ones are probably man-made. Mm-hmm. But certainly the circle, stuff like that, that's probably this is a natural occurrence that we can't cope up with yet. Because you find them in, you don't just find crop circles in crops. You do find them in the Arctic, in snow. There was a famous one in Australia that was found in the middle of a swamp. Okay, and all the reeds were down, but there's no way to get to it. And if you'd gone out to it, you would have left a trail to it. You know, does that mean reeds? There's no way to not get out to it unless you came by helicopter and landed on the thing. But again, this is swamp water. So you'd be in swamp water actually bending these reeds down. Impossible. There has to be either aliens or natural. And for me, I'd side on probably a natural for that.
Wayne Butler says, I saw a shadow man while I was eating my breakfast cereal as a 10-year-old standing inside my dinner in a room window. I did not finish my Weetabix. I was pretty upset.
What's Weetabix?
I guess it's
just the name of the cereal. Oh.
Let's see.
He's reading it. Oh, you went off.
Finchy Finch says, Lee looks like he should live in Alabama. I could vouch for that. You got that Alabama look to you. And by the way, Leslie said,
I did live in Alabama.
Leslie said that Jerry has upped his live interview game. When I was live, there was no cool background, and I was in a tiny thumb box. That's not true. You had this exact same background, as a matter of fact, and you were in a little thumb box when we put up pictures of like the Octagon Hall or whatever we talked about that night. Okay, let's see. Phil Holmes says he wants to find out who's blocking your internet and causing it to freeze because he wants to buy him a pizza. So,
because that'll fix the problem. To buy you a pizza.
Yeah, Jerry and Tracy. Here's an old story which is hard to find. A book from Belfast, Ireland, a real horror. I will paste a link here. I keep pushing, nothing's happening. So
you're silly.
Tracy, we're actually doing a story this Sunday that is of Irish nature. It's some Irish immigrants who moved to Canada. So it all takes place over in Canada, but it does involve some very famous Irish immigrants. So you might like that one.
Mm-hmm.
See, Austin says, I need this guy to read some books to me. So I could see that. He's got that, as was said earlier by Danny, the sexy accent. You could read some Harry.
You was going to say Harry Balls.
No, I was not going to say Harry Balls. But get your mind out of the gutter. So Lee, what's your favorite story that you've covered on your show? Is there any that stand out, especially maybe one that you really didn't realize the magnitude of the story until you started researching it, and you're like, oh wow, this is way more than I ever thought it was?
I don't know. There's so many, isn't there? They all have different things. The one that sticks in my mind as unique, interesting wise, we covered the power of hair, and this basically goes along the lines of the Samson and Delilah story. Hairs kill off and then loses power. It turns out that actually happens in reality, and maybe the hair is, it's got more gifts that we don't attribute to it. Maybe you can imagine the hair as like an antenna, like an insect has antennas.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost treat our hair as a very similar thing. I mean, our hair, arm hair and stuff, they pick up temperatures and all stuff around it we don't even think about. There's a story, and it was back during the Vietnam War, and what they did, they got these, they had trackers, and they couldn't find the enemy, right? They just couldn't find them. So what they did, they went back to America, and they got the best trackers from the Native Americans, and obviously they're really, really skilled at this. So they got them all and trialed them in America, and it was fantastic. They passed every test with flying colours. So they take them to Vietnam, and all of a sudden they can't do the job. They can't do any tracking almost. They're even worse than the guys they had before, and they couldn't explain it. But it turns out that when they joined the military, they gave them the buzz cut. It was just regulation at the time. So they give them the buzz cut, and they seem to lose all the power of tracking. Their ability was just gone.
Yeah.
Just from there, you know. So obviously, then they trialed it with guys straight in. You know, it was allowed to keep their air, and those guys were fantastic at their job. So, you know, is there something to that? You know,
Oh wow,
sounds
that's
like
crazy, isn't it?
The old Samson and Delilah deal from the Bible.
I mean, Jerry won't be able to find his way out of the supermarket. Look, who's there?
Nice. Tell everybody about how your show has changed a little bit over the years through different co-hosts and that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, you have some co-hosts that you get along with better than others, don't you? No, yes. I want that. It was, yeah, it was just obviously originally we had Stig, but then he had other things that he was on with, so he couldn't keep it up. Then we got Andy. Again, Andy wanted to do different things. He wanted more down the road, spirituality and stuff like that. He wanted to get into just doing that basically. So that's what he's doing at the minute. And then obviously now we've got Finchy, who had the comment from before, and yeah, he brings like a different element to the show. Different ideas, which helps, I think. But yeah, he adds to the show for sure. So.
Good. Sarah Hall says, "What does Lee think about remote viewing?"
Remote viewing. Can you hear me all right? I mean, there's a little bit of static on my end. I don't know.
No, I can hear you fine. There's just there's about a 5-second delay.
All right. Remote viewing. Well, we went to a conference a couple of months back there. Me and there was actually a remote viewing class at this conference, and we took part in it. And all this guy did, he just give you a set of coordinates, and then bang, you had to draw something. And the thing you drew was like you had a little box, and you just literally had to, as soon as he said coordinates, you drew something in there, just unconsciously, boom, boom, boom. And this, what you'd drawn, was basically a shape, and this shape represented something. And then after that, you the first couple of images from your mind, you draw on this piece of paper. And I would say there's probably, I don't know, 40 people in this workshop, and out of those 40 people, maybe a quarter of them at least, yeah, probably a quarter, or maybe more than that, drew the right picture. When he revealed the picture at the end, they drawn shapes on this piece of paper. You could definitely tell they were drawing what he was showing. So that that makes you think. And there was even one where he showed a picture of the coordinates. The first thing that came in my mind was two circles. And then your mind takes over and it starts saying, well, two circles could be silos, like look on a farm or something like that. But that's not the way I pitched it. The way I originally pictured it was like a circle on top of a circle, which, doesn't look anything like silos. But my mind took over and started, I drew silos. And when he showed the picture, it was a UFO crash that took place in Italy. And they captured, and one of the photographs of the UFO, it shows you it's like a circle, and then in the middle of the circle there's another circle. I think it was a Naples crash, if people want to look it up, the actual photograph, and then you can see what I mean. But you can clearly see it's circle. Exactly what I coordinates when he said, but getting your mind to focus on that and not go into the into the other stuff, filling in the blanks almost is difficult. But yeah, I think there's something to it for sure. If there wasn't, the CIA and all the rest of it wouldn't have spent millions, and the Russians millions on it, would they? So
let me ask you this, Lee. You have a fascination with Bigfoot, dogmen type creatures. Tell me what caused that fascination. What created that? What originally happened to where you really got a hard on for those things?
Was because I had a friend who told me a story about this creature he'd seen, and obviously, we thought he's talking bollocks. I do when you're young, but he told me this story, and then maybe a few months later, we was in a cafe down the street in town, and we was just talking about it, and it came up in conversation, and he started telling me this story again. And as he's telling me this story, a woman behind us says, "You didn't see that in Willesby Woods?" And he said, "Yeah." And she said, "I had the same thing 3 years ago." And then she literally went on to describe exactly what he'd told me. And then obviously I was like, well, hang on, 2 people have seen it now. And then I started mentioning it to people around that I knew. And then you get someone that would say, "Oh, I know someone that saw that," or "I saw that." So, it's not something you'd not readily go talking about. You have that stigma, that ridicule, and all the rest of it. But people had seen this creature, and this creature, in short, was basically like half man, half deer. So he had the lower half was a deer, then they had the torso of a man, and then you had like almost like a deer, like a human and deer. So he's got the human face, but with antlers and all the rest of it, and that's what people were seeing. Not very tall. It was only maximum of 6 feet tall. Most were saying it was about 4.5 feet tall. But you could only see it when it was above the corn. His head was stick up above the corn, so you can only see it at times. But and that was just right down the road from here. So that was the first thing that really intrigued me. But then I've been getting reports. Over the years doing this, I've been getting reports all the time. People seeing everything from black cats, which is massive in the UK at the minute. People seeing them all over the place. They're obviously not native to the UK, but a lot of belief is that the exotic pet law came into force. So if you had these, you would get a massive fine. So a lot of people who had these animals just released them into the wild. So obviously, that's where they originated. And maybe someone released a breeding pair, and the rest is history. But we do see them all the time, and people send me reports saying that they've seen black cats. And then when you start reading into the report, you're like, now this bit more than a black cat, because black cats don't really jump on top of your roof in the middle of the night and start peering through your windows.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a lot more going on. But people are it's like the ridicule. People are a little more readily tell you that they've seen a black cat, but they won't tell you, the details. And when you start pressing from the details, you get more information. It's like one guy sent me this email the other day, and he was down a road just up here that leads into town. It's a motorway or a dual carriageway. And it's got a central reservation, all the rest of it, and it's got barriers either side. He's just driving along. It's like 11:30 at night. There's not much traffic on the road. He had his son with him who was asleep. And then all of a sudden, he sees this creature walking out on the other carriageway, opposite side, and it leaps over the central reservation and then takes 2 bounces, and it's into the woodline. But he said the weirdest thing was about it, he said, when it came over the central reservation, it looked at it, like took to the 2 things. Then just before it went into the woods, it looked back at him, and they had eye contact for a few seconds there. They had actually made eye contact, and you could tell this thing was deliberately looking to put fear into him. He said he was absolutely terrified. When he looked into his eyes, he immediately felt dread. But he did stop. Favourite road, he did stop just to try and collect his thoughts. And did I dream it? He's thinking, well, did I dream it? But he's not the only person that's seen the same thing there. But I've got another guy who sent me a message, and it was quite good because he had actually seen a black cat up Cleethorpes. So we've got a seafront here, and just up from the seafront, there's like a retirement village, is what you'd probably call it. It's essentially it's caravans or trailers, but they don't have wheels. They're static, and a lot of elderly people live there. It's like a real nice beach, right on the beach. So like I say, a lot of elderly residents there. And he was working security this night. And then he got a report that someone had seen a black cat. And he himself had seen a black cat. So he knew that they were up in the seafront. During the early hours in the morning, you'd see them on the beach, beach combing, essentially looking for any crabs or anything like that had washed up. So he knew they was there. So when he gets this report, this is like 2 a.m, and he gets this report of a on this, retirement village, and he just thinks, well, no big deal. 20 minutes goes by, and he gets another radio message, and this time it's to him, and it's saying that a werewolf, not a black cat, a werewolf. Now he's still thinking black cat. So he goes along to this village. They ask him to go there because they can't make contact with the guard that had gone there, the security guard that had gone to this village. They can't make contact with him. So he drops what he's doing, drives up there, and he says when he could see this guy's van was parked in the road, the door was open. He had a security dog with him, and the security dog was cowering in the back of the van. The door was open, but the dog's still in the van. And he's looked across at this caravan, like the old couple, in that there's a cat, and he's Pete. And he looks across at the elderly couple that's in this caravan, and they're both saying to him, like, they're giving him that, get back in your car, And he's thinking, well, it's just a cat. He's more scared of me than that,
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're going, no, get cat, and going, it's just a black cat. And they're going, and they open the window and they say to him, it's a werewolf. And he's saying what? And he's walking up the garden path, and they say a wolf, on 2 legs, has just come round the fence line there, and the fence he said was about 4 feet tall, and they said this thing was at least 4 foot over this fence. He's talking 8 foot tall, and it's come round there as this guy's got a van. He's made eye contact with it, gone. He's jumped over a fence, over a hedge, and he's gone into the distance, never to be seen again. So these elderly couple won't let him in the house, and they shut the window, and they shut the curtains, and they tell him to go away. And he just shuts the van door, his van, goes back to his post, radios it in, and then he's fully expecting that he's going to hear from his mate at some point during that night. He never did. And he got the news the next day that this guy had actually quit. So whatever he'd seen, was enough to make him quit. But they said this elderly couple were adamant it was not a black cat. This was a werewolf. It had glowing eyes and all the rest of it, which is unusual for a cat. So she's shining a light on it. But no, they said it came out of the darkness, had the glowing eyes. It was 8 foot tall, and as soon as this guy's seen it, he's gone. But again, that's just up the road. So,
my gosh, I would crap my britches.
All right, Lee. So Brett stepping off wants to know if you're a horror movie fan, and what is your favorite horror movie?
Horror movie. Yeah, I suppose I am. It's one of them things, isn't it? Horror movies. You if I say something now, 10 minutes later, I'm going to think something. But I would say I am a horror movie fan. If probably Evil Dead.
The original
is one of my favorites because it's it is a comedy,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the horror aspect of it. I just that makes me laugh. Critters is another one. I don't know if you've seen Critters. But again, as of human. Yeah, have you seen Critters?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, all the old ones. If like the old ones more than the modern day ones, and stuff like that. I used to watch Puppet Master, which was pretty creepy at the time. All your Freddy Kruegers, they were pretty cool, the early ones. But if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Evil Dead. The original one was a little ropey. Then they remade it, didn't they? Mm-hmm. And it had a lot more going on, and that was really good. But yeah, Bruce Campbell, that gets my vote.
All right, Lee. So it's time to get off of here. Tell everybody how they can keep up with you on social media and how they can listen to the podcast.
tell people what? Sorry, broke up there.
How they can listen to your podcast and how they can keep up with you on social media.
Podcast. Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah, well, just type in Realm Supernatural for page. No, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. Not that we post much there. You can find us on all your podcast apps. You just type in Realm the Supernatural podcast, and up we pop. And you subscribe, and you keep listening, and you keep leaving reviews, even the good ones and the bad ones. It's all good.
Awesome. Buddy, it's been fun. I appreciate you taking the time to coming on.
No worries. Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. Sorry we had some internet problems, but as you can see, you got enough out of that to see he's very fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, what?
No, nothing.
Anyways, wanted to cover a couple of quick comments on here real quick. Tracy Bradley said, I'd rather face a werewolf than a banshee. And over here in Ireland, if you stumble upon a fairy ring, it's goodbye forever. I have a hard time getting into the fairy bandwagon. I just, I don't know. I mean, I think there's probably certain things, but I know there's a lot of cultures that really believe in fairies and gnomes and everything like that. But I have a hard time with that part. Out of everything in the paranormal or supernatural realm, that's probably the thing I have the hardest thing getting on board with.
Thank you, Leslie. Love you, girl.
All right. Phil Holmes has just been full of good comments today. Of course, Phil Holmes, host of Scared Podcast. Most of you have probably heard it. Sarah, thanks. She said that was a great interview with Lee. James said, have you heard of Cottingley fairies? You know what I have? I actually started listening. There was a British podcast. Can't think of the name right off the bat. Dark Histories, maybe. I think they did an episode on the Cottingley fairies, but I didn't get to listen to the entire thing. It's been a while back. I'm fascinated by some of the stories. I just don't know. I don't know how much I believe or can get on board. I could be completely wrong, and they're all over the place for all I know. But I just have a hard time with that part of it. Austin says he believes in angels and demons, but fairies are other questions. Well, he says angles. He spelt it wrong. I believe in angles too. I'm really big into 90-degree angles, and 45-degree angles are my all-time favorite, though. So. All right, guys, we're going to get off of here. Thanks so much. We love you. And this, like I said, this is going to be the last one that we're going to do for a while. And we don't know who our next guest is going to be, but we'll probably start doing about one of these a month and still have some fun with it. So we'll catch you guys later.
Bye, guys. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.